Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the Morning. 15 minutes to change our lives. If I give it to Daka, I also wanted to thank the sponsor of today's Shiur in honor of a birthday, Ita Gravich. Happy birthday to the source of our learning and sponsoring the Shiur. You should have all the brachas in the world. An amazing, amazing year with everything that you need and you want. Should come easily. Have a amazing day. Thank you very, very much. Okay, we're going to also be thinking about all the yidden Eretz Yisroel, all the soldiers that are fighting for the protection, for the safety of the Jewish people, and for the safe return of all the hostages. We're going to focus on Yonatan Chai ben Linda. Yonatan Chai ben Linda should be healthy and safe. He should come home happily and safely. Okay, now we're going to sort of switch gears to what we've been talking about basically for most of this Kuntres. Very interesting. So we're going to discuss today, we're going to start talking about the opposite side of everything, which is the shtus of Kedusha. And what does it mean? And let's understand a little bit. Very interesting subject. Okay, Maimon Chavav, page 369 in this Sefer. Parak Aleph. This is exactly the same beginning of the whole Maimer. We started right in Aleph. Now we're going full circle, explaining this idea in the Kedusha side of things. That was all we're talking about on the negative, the klippa, and all the problems with the shtus. Now we're talking about the positive. This is what it means. A wellspring from the house of Hashem went out and watered the Valley of Shittim. So what does that mean? There's also in holiness shtus. A lot of us know this already because we learned Basil Gani. But this was before Basil Gani. And so he's saying that there's a shtus, there's a Kedusha version of shtus. Shtus, it technically translated as folly. But folly, what does folly mean? In simple English, it means like stupidity, illogical, maybe things like that. So there's a non-holy version, a negative version, which is what happens when you do something negative and doesn't make any sense. It's like, why are you eating the third cheesecake? It's like one wasn't enough. It doesn't make any sense, but you do it anyway. Unfortunately, we all have this. So we think, no, I don't eat 3 Sure, none of us, I don't think, eat 3 cheesecakes, but we all have this version. It's something we do that doesn't make much sense. Simple version is going to bed late. It's gonna make us have a bad day or a hard day tomorrow because we're tired. But we still manage. That's true. It's not logical. So now there's also a positive version of this. Like a rabbi said in something in the Ksuvos, says that it was well. How do you translate? His folly stood the venerable sage in good stead. Meaning in the story goes that there was by a wedding, and one of the sages was dancing a little bit out of the ordinary. And so one of the other sages was like, you're making us look bad. It's embarrassing. What are you doing? You shouldn't be dancing like this. It's a little bit, it's below your dignity. And then when that sage passed away, the one that was dancing, a pillar of fire separated his body between everyone else. And that doesn't normally happen. And he recognized, he said, I see that this shtus, but this folly, the way he was acting, that I thought was not necessarily so good, I see it was a deeper level of good. And that was actually very special what he did. And this is shtus to Kedusha. So let's understand this type of shtus, this shtus of Kedusha. So it's something that's above logic. That's shtus. Shtus by nature is above logic, or it's above or below logic. Meaning there's logic, there's natural, there's the way we normally do things, and meant to do things, and then there's above or below that. We're talking about above them. Like it says in Malachim, he says, why did this crazy person come? And it's referencing to the Navi. Why? Because the Naviim, as we're going to talk about, when they would do Nevuah, when they would prophesize, it would take them to a state a little bit out of the regular state, because they couldn't do it just in regular bodily things. And they'll do things that looked crazy. Now, this is actually, I think it's talking about how people were, the people of idol worshippers of Baal were doing this, what we're calling them a sugar in a negative. We're trying to put them down, but because what he did didn't look regular. But what really was coming from some higher level. They were just putting it down because it looked out of the ordinary. And the source of this is because it's opposite of the tree of knowledge. So now we're going to discuss what happened in the tree of knowledge and how it affected and shaped the world in a negative way. What did Eitz Hadas do? It made us start to be sensitive in an unhealthy way to ourselves. A simple example of this is you look at kids when they're young, very young, they're like free. And they don't have these, what we call sensitivities to like people around them and things, and they just do whatever they're meant to do. They're not embarrassed if they're naked. They do whatever it is. And it's a very positive. When we get older, because of the Eretz Hadas, we start to realize, this is not the right thing to do. What are people going to say? How are people going to think? And suddenly we put in all these different ideas that actually affect the way we see things, do things. Let's see. Like it's known, what did Eitz Hadas accomplish? One of the main accomplishments is feelings. He's recognizing what happened. Like it says in Bereshit, Hashem comes to call Adam and Chava, and he sees they're wearing clothes. Suddenly they're wearing clothes. Like, what happened? What happened to us? They said, we recognize we were embarrassed because we were naked. So he said, who told you you're naked? So the question is, what do you mean, who told you you're naked? I was naked. Who told you there was a problem being naked? Suddenly they realized being naked was a problem. Meaning, essentially, it's not a problem. But because of eating of the Eitz Hadas, it became intermingled, and suddenly they saw that their limbs that weren't covered need to be covered because, well, really they saw it because they recognized that this is something to be done an avera with, whereas before that they didn't see it that way. It's other whatever. Don't want to get into that. It's a whole different topic. But the point is, through eating the Eitz Hadas, it became, they had this sense. Suddenly they aren't comfortable because in this case they were naked. But it became that sense that they got was unhealthy. That was a negative side effect. Didn't they know from the beginning they were naked? They didn't feel this nakedness. It's like a little kid. When they walk around naked, they don't feel anything funny. They don't recognize anything. And then they start to feel, after they ate from the tree, they start to feel uncomfortable. Suddenly they recognize, I'm naked, and there's something there to that, something wrong with that. Like it says in the beginning, and like it says in the beginning, before they ate, they were both naked, they weren't embarrassed. They didn't feel any lacking being naked. Then they suddenly recognized it, and they felt that there's a problem here. And that's what the tree of knowledge accomplished, but it's a negative thing. And now we're going to explain that the Rambam brings down. Like it brings down Moreh Nevuchim. Essentially, it's like a book that Rambam was arguing or discussing with someone about Yiddishkeit and all these questions that he had. So it says in the beginning, Chalak Aleph Perek Beis, one wise person questioned him, the Rambam. So this guy was asking Rambam, they ate from the tree of knowledge, and suddenly they recognized that they're naked. This is a milah. This is an advantage. So they did an avera. They went against what God wanted, and then suddenly they become more sensitive to themselves. That's a very good thing. So how do they benefit from the Avera? Like it says over there. But like it says in the Chumash, and both of their eyes opened up. So he's saying, look, so they gained from this Avera. So how does that work? So what did Rambam answer him? Rambam answered, that recognition they had that they're naked, it's not a mila. Seemingly we think it is a mila, but this is how crazy this idea is. Like realizing it's not a mila, they recognize this. When a kid's running around free without that sensitivity, that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Where we look at it as a bad thing from our perspective. From our perspective, it's totally warped. That's really good. Because before they ate, they had their ideas were on bigger things, as explains. Yeah. As first, Adam's knowledge is intellectual, meaning they didn't think about. Yeah, the way I'm understanding this is they didn't think about it in terms of themselves. They were totally removed. They had, so to speak, bittul. Nothing got to do. They didn't think about things in terms of themselves. Like let's say you're in a classroom and you have a question. So you don't. A lot of time, what do? We don't ask the question. We think to ourselves, how am I going to look if I ask this question? Is this question is it a good enough question to ask? Or is it not a good enough question? That type of thing, I think, is what we're talking about. That's what happened by Chedet Adas. Suddenly we start to be self-aware. And suddenly, like, hey, how am I going to look? What are people going to think of me? What's the perception of me? And that's not a healthy thing. Although we all have this, and we think to ourselves it's a very big mile because we can figure out how to be a mensch, look nice and proper and things like this, and act in a certain way. But that's it's not really a mile. I didn't have the power to use to connect with these like natural perception that people have. I know something that's nice, something not nice. B'shum panim at all. I then lost these being able to be totally removed from these things and just like think about things and not have how it affects me and things like that. And what happened was, and through eating from the Eitz Hadas, I started to recognize and feel things that are good, things not bad. Another simple example is you can eat because it's healthy for you. I'm saying you choose what's healthy, but then you eat, it doesn't taste good. Before the Chet, they ate whatever was healthy. After the Chet, I don't like this. It doesn't taste so good. Which is a big chisaron. It makes life so much harder. It's like Pesach, you have Pesach, and Pesach food is very different, especially if you eat all the Chumash of Lubavitch, or a lot of them, whatever. It could be difficult. But before the Chet, it wouldn't be an issue. It's healthy, it's the right way to eat. Eat easy. After the Chet, it's so hard, I don't like it. That's what the Chet sort of brought about. It's not a milo. Rambam was saying to this guy, this chacham, it's not a milo. Now you can sense it. Now you know what food tastes good. Is that a milo? That just makes it a lot more complicated. Now you know you're naked. Before they run free, little kids run free naked. Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't bother them. They don't have an issue. That's good. Of course, I'm not saying we should run around naked. but that's the point. The point is that sensitivity is not a good sensitivity. Bazaya, and it says in the Zaya, Chelik Gimel. And he explains, what does Zayar explain? On their eyes opened up. The high alma, with the murkiness of this world. Because before they just saw godliness, it was all clear, it was about God. But suddenly they came, they looked, suddenly, people, also little kids, they don't know good people, bad people. They speak to anyone that they encounter, there's no judgments. When our eyes open up, so to speak, like we're saying here, suddenly there's judgment. Look at that person, they're not dressed nicely. You judge all these judgment issues, things like that. That's what came about. So too with the prophets, when they came to prophesize, they suddenly removed a lot of them removed their clothing, and we're going to explain later. Could also be not just like physically, but more like more spiritually. And then they got to the level of Adam Rishon before the Chet. Just like we're talking about the little kid that doesn't feel anything, so to that same level, but on a proper, deeper level, like Adam Rishon before the sin. Totally nullified from that natural perception of things, like embarrassed being naked, and they'll totally remove from that on a way higher level. Based on the Vosam, this is the idea of removal of their clothing in the time of their prophecy. Like it says by Shaul in Shmuel, by Yavshet Gam, who has begotten, he also removed his clothing, but he's Navi, and he prophesies. So for us, we say it's so weird. You're going to prophesize being naked. Being naked for us is a negative thing. Walking around naked is very negative, and it comes to prophecy. To saying, so that's what we're showing, because he went to the source, the way we are, or the way he was, Shaul before the sin of Adam and Chava, and in that place, being naked is totally fine, totally way above all these things, and that's what they were reaching. And he, like I said, and he fell naked. Adam Rishon before the sin, he didn't feel the need of clothing. He wasn't like, I don't care, and I'm going to do whatever I want. You say, hey, you're not wearing any clothing. It's like, why do I need to wear clothing? And totally, that's how they felt. Like, they didn't understand what is the need for clothing. Just like you don't think to yourself, I need to cover my face. I need people not to see my face. It's not sneers. We don't think that way. That's how he thought. But it was everywhere. When they were prophesying, when they got to the level of Nevuah, they didn't recognize the issue of clothing. Because of the lack of that feeling of nature of the physical world. And also in a deeper level, what does it mean? Removal of the clothing is removal of the sensitivities of the world around them. And like an example of being naked or not, they didn't feel any of that. They went above and they were totally removed. And that's what I was saying. And that's what we're learning. We're going to continue going and understand what this means in the idea of shtus, of kedusha. They can reach this level above and beyond. And that level, everything is clear, but it's not even logical. It's above logic. It's just clear and straight and obvious. Mitzvah Hashem to be continued tomorrow. Have an amazing day.